Welcome back to Softcore History. I'm your host for the week, Dan Regester, and I'm joined as always by Rob Fox.
What's going on, baby?
And special guest back from Normandy, Jack Mandaville.
Je ne parle pas français.
Je m'appelle Daniel.
Ah!
You didn't take my pickup line advice, by the way. I DM'd you something to say to a French lady to just drop the panties.
Oh, I was not hitting on any chicks over there. I was just eating baguettes, smoking cigarettes, and drinking espresso.
Damn it.
That's how
Yeah.
you hit on French girls.
There's no time
Yeah,
to be
that is-
hitting on women over there.
Damn it, dude. I wanted you to say it to somebody.
That seems by the book, though.
Yeah, that seems like how you would get a French chick. Ignore them, smoke cigarettes, eat a baguette.
Oh, yeah, it was hilarious. Jared was attempting his best Ben Franklin out while he was out in France. He wanted to clean up on all the French ladies.
He was hitting on like 70-year-old women?
Yeah, I mean, he had the age range pretty wide. I don't think the French women don't really connect with Americans. And then he went into Germany, and he was just like as happy as can be. They love American men over there somehow.
It's your abuser. You tend to feel more connected to them in a weird way. It's not Stockholm syndrome because that's a different thing. But yeah, it's kind of just you're held hostage. We've beaten them horribly twice, and they feel, like a weird connection to that.
Yeah.
They just want to make us happy.
They're just trying to follow us around and please us. Are you okay? Are you mad at me? Are you mad at me?
I'll do better this time, baby.
Yeah.
I got to say, the relationship we have with the French is almost that of an older cousin that helps us out in our youth, but then they get more and more jealous as you become successful.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. It's like, no, dude, you don't. I'm still better than you. That's why I helped you, because I thought I'd always be better than you.
Just a growing resentment. Like, yeah, I provided a roof over your head. I gave you some money.
Advice.
Naval power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about this because you were in D-Day, or you were in France.
June 6, 1944. I was there.
He was there.
Yeah.
Just popping off German guys.
He went to Normandy for the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
I did. Yeah. Holy moly.
How was that?
That was something else. I said I don't know if I could ever do another one of these because of how amazing this first. I'd be disappointed if I went over there again. It was just so amazing being there for the 80th with. Dude, I was escorting World War II veterans around, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the show.
Yeah.
The French, I felt like I was escorting the Beatles around. They were mobbing our van, and like we had to like get out and yell at people to get away. Like they were handing these guys babies. Like I've never seen anything like. I've been around some celebrities before. I've never seen anything like that before.
I'm almost positive you've interviewed every World War II veteran that's still alive.
It seems like it. Yeah. And at this point, it's not all. The ones that they have there, they're not all D-Day veterans because there's probably maybe 5 of those guys
Yeah,
left.
no joke.
So now it's just like, hey, you served? I mean, I was with a guy named Alan. He was awesome. He's hilarious. He's like, I don't know anything about this, man. I saw the Japanese maybe twice while I was out there. Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that we brought up, your time in France, our relationship with the French. It's actually what the episode today is about.
America's relationship with France.
Our entire relationship with the French.
Sweet.
It's a good analogy to use, the cousin thing. But like the thing is, the cousin, from what I saw, the cousin still loves you. Even though there is resentment, they roll their eyes at you, they do still love you.
Because you're still family at the end of the day.
You're still family.
Yeah. So the idea of America as a concept itself could be pointed to colonists ingesting French political philosophy that would shape our own.
Who was it again? There was one guy in particular.
I have a few.
Okay. There's one name that's going to jump out to me.
A survey in the late 18th century by Donald Lutz stated that French philosopher Montesquieu was the most quoted man in the British Americas, cited more by the founding fathers than any other source outside of the Bible.
Even more than John Locke or anything like that? Damn.
So they were the real Enlightenment motherfuckers over there, huh?
Oh, yeah. We also had Jean-Jacques Rousseau and The Social Contract.
Okay.
Really hit home with the colonists and influenced the Declaration of Independence.
Which is funny because they all kind of fucking hated the French. Like they liked their thinking, like they liked the philosophy, but they just fought a war with them.
Yeah.
They disdained at least the French government because it was like the English monarchy was already a constitutional monarchy, although still the king was still in control. But the French was an absolute monarchy.
Yep.
Like a full on.
Which was their undoing.
Yeah. Like it was a full on. There was the what do they call the? Is it not the estates, but there was a kind of a parliament in France, but it was called at the king's leisure and not that often.
Yeah.
Because that's where the estates come from: the first estate, second estate, third estate, and that's actually where the terms left and right wing come from.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was the people sat on the left, people sat on the right. People sat on the left were the annoying shit libs, and people sat on the right was like the church and fucking
also annoying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I just said the church. I didn't think I needed to add context to.
Yeah, yeah, and you see how much being out in France, you see how much of a grip that the church had on the had. I don't know if they still do, but every small tiny town you go to, 500 people, and it's the most extravagant,
Yeah.
I mean, and kudos to Catholic architecture. It is phenomenal.
It's the only good building in the whole fucking town for the most part.
It is. It's just, and every single town had the most beautiful church in it. They put a lot of money into it.
I think churches in France were kind of like high school football stadiums in Texas.
Yeah.
Like it was the town's flex.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nothing else mattered. Just have a dope church.
So Rousseau kind of believed that all men and women are created equal. Does that sound familiar?
Well, it sounds pretty freaking woke to me.
An elected government by the people would protect rights like freedom of speech, religion, and those elected, if they did not uphold their duty to the people, they would be removed. So essentially bar for bar, the Declaration of Independence. Also, Montesquieu essentially came up with a power of checks and balances in government and that no man need be afraid of another. James Madison was a huge Montesquieu guy.
Okay. Not Jefferson?
More Madison.
Okay.
Who is, I believe, the father of the Constitution, technically.
Yeah. Madison, I think, was, the big guy for that.
What? Oh, no, I'm thinking of the Declaration. Jefferson was the Declaration of Independence. Madison was the Constitution.
Yeah, Jefferson wrote the Declaration, and Adams and Franklin edited it.
Yep. And then John Hancock came in and just showed up in the fourth quarter and like, I did this.
Yeah.
Not to mention, Continental Congress was able to secure money, clothing, ammunition, and supplies provided by the French and Spanish by the fall of 1775 through a shell company called Rodrigue Hordelez and Company, created by French playwright and watchmaker, an international arms dealer, Pierre Beaumarchais.
What a life. Can you imagine if
he's worth an episode himself?
Aaron Sorkin was just sending guns to Ukraine on the side.
We've had our Hemingway types, but I'd like to know more about this guy.
Hemingway, though, I don't think Hemingway wanted to do anything other than get shot at and shoot at people.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, bully, a man fights. Oh. It takes us one square to the jaw or he's not a man.
You know his D-Day story, right?
Hemingway's?
Yeah.
No.
He at that point he was already a living legend. Like he was already an icon. And the army was like, we're not gonna get Ernest Hemingway killed. So they didn't allow him on the beach until like everything was secured.
Yeah.
And then they really hindered his ability to move. And he just said, F this. And he left the US Army, got because he spoke French because he had lived there.
Right.
He got hooked up with some French resistance guys and basically was breaking the Geneva Convention, leading a group of French resistance around and killing Germans.
Good Lord.
And then they actually
is that what A Farewell to Arms is based on?
No, that's World War I.
Yeah, that was his first go around. Over there. Yeah,
he was just real horny to get just fucking shot at.
And they actually, they either came very close to or they brought him up on essentially war crime charges.
Who?
Hemingway, because he's a journalist.
No, who brought him up on charges?
The U.S. Army did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then.
Oh, right, so he was there to write about it.
He did so many freaking operations as a civilian writer around France that they end up giving him, if I'm not mistaken, a Bronze Star as a civilian. Like, it's on the record. Ernest Hemingway has a Bronze Star from the Second World War as a civilian.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So our boy Beaumarchais constantly described his own life as always at combat because he was always trying to fight uphill. He provided all this financial aid, provided millions of livres in weapons, money to the colonies, while their own economy was on the verge of collapsing.
Oh yeah,
playing a
French economy was
major
dog shit.
role in winning the revolution. And how did we thank this vital man in our triumph? Dudes like Arthur Lee and other members of Congress told him to kick rocks.
Why?
They're like, we're not paying you back.
Oh my God.
Arthur Lee. Now that name
That
sounds
very
familiar.
American of them.
Let me look. That guy's definitely related to Robert E. Lee.
They were all related. If you heard the Lee name up until the late 19th century, they were all related to each other. They all came from that Henry Lighthorse Lee lineage.
But don't worry, we paid back Beaumarchais in 1835 when he was 36 years dead.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So his estate got some money.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. His kid got some money. Quit whining. You're gonna give it to your kids.
The only
anyway.
time in history where I can recall the United States righted a wrong, at the relatively right time, is when in the 90s they acknowledged how effed up the Japanese internment was and kind of compensated those families.
Yeah, they did get reparations.
Yeah, and even that was still like, what, 50, 60 years later?
50 and change.
But, that's the only time I can think of where, if you look at, the big checklist of things that we weren't necessarily the best boys on, that's the only time I can think where, oh, yeah, we fucked up. Here's money. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, they were taking cases to the Supreme Court at the time.
Yeah.
For the whole thing. Although it's hard to, you're not going to convince, I mean, I guess the Supreme Court, half of it is we're going to rule on if it's, if this is constitutional, but another half is is there precedent or whatever? Is there precedent to I guess, quote, abuse of power in wartime, which,
right.
There was plenty of precedent for that. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. So they were like, yeah, fuck your habeas corpus.
Yeah.
We don't care. Lincoln did it.
Yeah. Things like, what's the Bush thing they did, the Patriot Act and all that kind of stuff.
Now, Beaumarchais was only one avenue of aid. In total, France contributed something astronomical like 1.7 billion livres and 90% of all gunpowder used by war's end.
This fact is what makes me want to slam my head against a wall when you hear isolationist Americans talk about Ukraine. I'm not saying we owe Ukraine support or anything like that, but when people say shit like, if you can't defend your own country with your own shit, you don't deserve to be independent.
Yeah, we did not. We had a lot of help.
All the fucking help in the world.
We don't win that war without France.
Help.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not a bunch of farmers that freed the United States.
No.
At fucking all. That is a myth.
Oh, well, I mean, people also forget it was the majority of the population was either indifferent or was actually pro-British.
We talked about that on the show before.
Yeah.
The highest the approval rating ever got for the revolution was 45%.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Not a majority.
I think it's more. I think indifference and loyalists were kind of tied, roughly. You know what I mean?
This tax doesn't affect me. I'm
right.
good.
I'm fucking I don't
want to get cannonball through the frickin'
face.
Through my face.
Yeah. But dude, it just because look at what happened. We rebelled against the biggest superpower in the world, and immediately went to the only other two countries that remotely resembled superpowers in.
The Dutch?
Well, not even the Dutch. Well, they were an economic power, but for military support, France and Spain. Mm-hmm. We went to the Dutch for money, and we also went to the other sort of preeminent military power at the time, the Prussians, for help with training.
Yeah, what's his name? Baron von Steuben.
Yeah.
We don't win the war without a Prussian military officer pretty much running our army.
Teaching us how to have an army.
Soldiers, yeah.
Yeah, the same way NATO taught Ukraine how to have an army and not just some slapdick Russian backwoods version of an army. Because the way the Russians organize their army is dog shit compared to basically any Western army.
Yeah, for the Russian army, from what I understand, it's so officer heavy and it's so directed on orders and do what you're told. Like in the U.S. military, you could have your whole squad wiped out and you're a PFC and you're well, I guess I'm in charge now. And you actually do have the means to take charge.
Yeah.
Where in the Russian military, it's no, just do what you're told. If that guy gets killed, we're all fucked.
Yeah, there is no NCO system in the Russian military,
right,
basically.
Just about every firearm at Saratoga, one of the most pivotal moments in the war, was a French weapon. The victory resulted in the Treaty of Alliance and Treaty of Amity and Commerce, which gave the colonies legitimacy to the rest of Europe. Not to mention, Other than a few lunatics like John Paul Jones, we didn't have a Navy.
Yeah.
At all.
John Paul Jones, sick dude. Go listen to our episode about him. Absolute animal.
Right.
But like
I said, lunatic.
Yeah. Was that your episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that was a good one.
But France sent over 63 warships with 22,000 men to combat the British blockade and dominance on the ocean, along with 12,000 foot soldiers, and helped secure victories in the Chesapeake and at Yorktown, where Lafayette cornered Cornwallis and essentially secured the dub.
And you know why the other American Revolution didn't win? The Civil War, the Confederate Revolution, if you want to call it that.
The closest they got is the British sent them some observers to see if they wanted to get involved, but they never committed. And
no naval power. So people were breaking Britain's blockade on us. No one broke the Union blockade on the Confederacy. That was what that's really what they didn't really need the troops. Like, obviously you always want more troops, right? The Confederates. But what they really fucking needed was the money and the naval and the Navy.
We'll get to the French involvement in the Civil War.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that. But yeah, dude, like, and Saratoga, to your point earlier, that is essentially like the Gettysburg of the American Revolution. That is
it's like, they're legit.
Point. Yeah, that's the turning point. It's more or less.
This isn't just some little skirmish that the British are going to squash.
They can get dubs.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point earlier, too, that like our founding fathers, guys like George Washington, had served in the British Army the majority of his life.
Yeah.
So there was going to be some built-in animosity towards the French.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, they come and save the fucking day. That
100%.
changes the whole dynamic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like the 7 Years' War / French and Indian War.
Which he was a veteran of.
He was a veteran of. Started it.
Cut his teeth.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Started the war. I still need to get into that episode about how.
I didn't want to kind of like, step on your territory there, so I avoided that for this episode.
But Washington, I mean, the 7 Years' War / the French and Indian War, which is just what it was called here, that was the First World War. That was the first true global conflict. And it was for
different countries on different continents.
Navies all over the world.
Yep.
And that was
enlisting the indigenous populations to fight for them.
That flipped the power for good. Like, that put England in charge for good. Because that was a sort of like it didn't destroy France, but like that was an existential conflict where who is going to be number one throughout the world, France or England, essentially. And France fucking lost, and England from then on up through World War II, number one.
Yeah.
So after Yorktown, the British soon come to the negotiating table, and the colonies in France agreed they would only make terms as a tandem, not separate from with the Brits.
Oh, it's like the cast of Friends.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to negotiate together.
6 years later, the French overthrow the Bourbon regime.
Bourbon, R.I.P.
And the U.S. starts to sour on our feelings for these people that gave us help for our very own independence.
No,
and their revolution, we Americans are like, revolution, we beat the British, we're so awesome. That when they did that, their revolution, they went all in. Our revolution was economic. Theirs was personal.
There was deeply like.
So that's kind of what scared off a lot of Americans was the Reign of Terror.
Like,
which, you guys are nuts.
Actually, rightfully should scare you off. They were fucking psycho.
But Jefferson, from what I understand, Jefferson was all about it. He was basically trying to rabble rouse that.
Bitch, you would get your head cut off.
Yeah.
You fucking live on a plantation. Mm-hmm. You own human beings. I love Thomas Jefferson. I think he's awesome. I don't think a single Thomas Jefferson statue should get taken down, but oh my God, dude.
There's some hypocrisy there.
Oh, but the worst one, but forget the fucking freedom versus slavery shit like that. The Tree of Liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. That guy never picked up a rifle in his life.
Yeah, and I don't think he ever said that. I think the debate's still out whether he
is that not even
that.
Necessarily?
From what I've been told, yeah. So I don't know. It's commonly attributed to him, but I think there's evidence that he never said
But even
that.
just the social upheaval, it is literally like a college professor who makes $500,000 a year being on the side of the proletariat or something. Dude, you are fucking one of the wealthiest people in the country. You are the 1%. You're just cosplaying as I don't even fucking know what.
Yeah.
You're just bored. You're fucking bored.
So not Jefferson, but Thomas Paine actually had his head on the guillotine in Paris in 1794 and was saved last minute by James Monroe.
Wow.
Wow.
I didn't realize that. I did not know that.
Was Monroe like an ambassador, or was there a reason why he was?
He's a diplomat, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of things I learned about James Monroe in this episode, and he's dope.
Yeah, Monroe's sick. The Monroe Doctrine.
Nothing to do with the Monroe
Doctrine.
Doctrine.
But the Monroe Doctrine's dope.
1793, the Brits double penetrate France from all angles, and Washington formally recognizes the new government, but decides to sit out their issues with England with the proclamation of neutrality. So France is getting kind of butt-fucked by both sides during their own revolution by the English. And we're like, you know what? We're sitting this one out, guys.
Well, technically speaking, it was Louis XVI who came to our aid, not the French government that was currently in power.
Which is what we said when we didn't want to pay them back.
Yeah.
Oh, no. We don't owe France money.
We owe
Louis money.
Kingdom of France.
Yeah. So I don't know what you are.
Where's the Kingdom of France now? I don't know.
Yeah, what does this contract say?
Yeah.
It's
fair. It's fair.
It's not a bad argument. It's not.
Congress agreed and passed the Neutrality Act, forbidding any U.S. citizen from participating in the conflict, and prohibited the use of U.S. soil as a base of operation for either side.
I think Washington definitely had to rein Jefferson in during that time. He had to give him a talking to about that.
Ugh, yeah, I'm sure he did. He was just head in the clouds at that point. I do that's one of my favorite parts of the miniseries John Adams, is that Jefferson just gets kookier and kookier.
Oh yeah, well that's where I based 99.9% of my knowledge about the Revolution on. It was off that HBO miniseries.
Yes, same, yeah.
It's a good source.
It's It's based off a David McCullough novel. It's not a writer's room. You know what I mean? It's off one of the best biographies of all time.
Yeah, McCullough. Not to go on a tangent here. That guy has he has made the underdog, and because he did Truman as well.
Yeah,
he's able to paint the underdog as such an awesome. John Adams was always overshadowed by Washington and Jefferson. Mm-hmm. He did Truman, who was overshadowed by FDR
and
Eisenhower.
Yeah, and then JFK too. Nobody cares about Truman.
Yeah,
he dropped
you find out that these are pretty extraordinary guys.
Yeah, Truman's sick, dude. I'm a Missourian though, so I have to love Harry.
Oh yeah, make a little trip to Independence, see the museum.
The French, who were still not paid back for their efforts in our revolution, felt that it was an act of betrayal by Washington, and when the Jay Treaty passed between England and the U.S. in 1794, they saw it as an act of hostility towards their nation.
It's can you imagine? I don't know how much the French were invested in the American Revolution, but can you imagine there's just this world-altering revolution for a government by the people. You helped in that war. You helped them get that independence, and then you turn around and you're like, we want our own democracy too. And then you turn back and you're like, yeah, bros, and they're like, we just didn't want to.
And they're siding almost with the people that you helped them get independence from.
Right. Who, by the way, England was but I think before the United States, you could plausibly say that either England or the Dutch was essentially the freest country in the world. England was not a tyrannical.
No, our system of government to this day is very much based off of what they were doing.
They had a genuine constitutional monarchy, a representative system that had been there for centuries.
Yeah, they had already gone through their
civil war,
through their question with themselves about what are human rights, what are citizens' rights. Yeah,
they were pretty ahead of the curve.
What are civil rights?
Yeah, and we were like, hey, fuck you, Dad.
Yeah, no, and let's be honest. I know you guys have covered this, and we just talked about it earlier. Our founding fathers, incredible figures. I'm glad it all went down, but the fact is, their decision for a revolution had less to do with ideals, and it was more economic. Yeah, so they're.
I think the economic opportunity, the economic necessity presented them with the philosophical opportunity.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They were
well read and all that stuff.
Yeah, they were a running back hitting a hole, right? They were once they realized they could maybe put all the fun reading that they did into practice, they did it, but only after the economics forced them.
Yeah. Again, French reading.
Yeah,
the average colonial had a pretty nice life. Those taxes really didn't affect them, and I'm certain quite a few of them were pissed off. But that stuff only affected the 1%.
Yeah, that's why you need shit like the Boston Massacre to rile up everyone.
That happened to the common man. Yeah.
Yes.
Which, by the way, all those soldiers got a fair trial.
I posted a clip the other day. Justified police shooting.
They were throwing rocks at him.
And someone yelled fire.
Yeah.
As in shoot. like from behind them.
Yeah. It'd be ironic to see if you see, the people today that will find like any excuse why a cop.
Yeah.
Like,
but they live.
It'll be interesting to which side they would have taken back then.
Oh, so on the other end of that, when I think maybe it was George Floyd, maybe it was one of the other fucking 100, however many. It was something.
Get to the point.
Caused a kerfuffle in the news about a black guy getting shot by a cop, and I saw several people on the liberal side be like essentially pose the Boston Massacre. It'd be like, see, this unjustified police shooting is what caused the revolution, so you should be against like the police, essentially, whatever. And I wanted to be like, oh boy, I got bad news for you guys. That was 100% justified.
Speaking of the Boston Massacre, John Adams sent diplomats over to France in 1797 to cool the tension, only for those representatives to be met with a pay-to-play scheme upon their arrival. The French officials demanded bribes before they would meet with any American, and Adams was appalled by the whole ordeal. This would later be known as the XYZ affair, which escalated to the Quasi War, which was 2 years of our navies having an on-site policy in the West Indies.
Oh, okay. So mostly in the not in the Atlantic, just in the West Indies?
Just a lot of maritime chaos.
God damn.
Like they would just kidnap our soldiers. And shit.
I mean, that was like a thing. Forever. Like piracy it was as much about like taking slaves, dudes, and being like that's what the War of 1812 was over. That's what the Barbary pirates were doing. I guess that's what they were doing. It really, like a lot of piracy. It's like, oh, for plunder and blah. It's like, nah, give me the people.
Yeah,
the people is my plunder.
Yeah, the whole human trafficking, that's not a new concept.
There's no if you open a real pirate's treasure chest, it's just 20 babies inside, and they're like gonna sell them one day.
Yeah.
Our Navy held their own and disrupted French trade enough that they resolved their issues with us by the year 1800, with the agreement that we would not interrupt in the wars of Napoleon.
So Napoleon was in charge at this point?
Mm-hmm.
So they finally had a central authority and a pragmatic, super intelligent one at that.
Speaking of the pole man, 1803. We get hooked up with perhaps the greatest going out of business sale in human history with the Louisiana Purchase.
Louisiana Purchase, baby.
So I read the other day, I didn't realize this. Do you know why the Louisiana Purchase happened in particular?
I'm about to talk about it.
Okay, I'll see if you cover the part I was going to say.
So Napoleon gets a cool 15 mil to help fight his wars, while also not having to dump many resources into territory recently taken back from the Spanish. He was also pretty much out in the New World after the slave revolt in Haiti.
Got it, yeah.
And not being able to cash in sugar cane.
Do you think his willingness to just dump Louisiana, do you think it's because he knew America was just going to keep pushing west? And he didn't even want to deal with what that was going to look like?
I just don't believe he thought the juice was worth the squeeze
at that
trying
point.
To put resources into the West.
Yeah.
If he could have gotten some sort of peace in Europe, he would have turned his attention to the Americas.
And if he could have kept those plantations in Haiti that would have churned over sugar cane money, I think he would have kept it. But at that point with the slave revolts, he's like, it's not even worth it.
But between Haiti and New Orleans, he had a pretty decent beachhead, I guess you could say, in the New World. But once Louverture fucking did the whole Haitian slave revolt and Haiti was off the table, it was just like, God damn, this can be so much work. It's going to be like a fucking Vietnam and Haiti probably. Literally, they were psycho.
Well, he's doing 12 other things.
And he didn't have peace on the continent, right? So he still has to deal with fucking England and shit. So it's just not, can't do it.
Jefferson then swoops in and sends James Monroe initially to get New Orleans and some land around it. But my dude Monroe comes back with the country double in size and continues that sweet, sweet march to manifest destiny. So it was Monroe that actually negotiated the deal on behalf of Jefferson.
And the chunk of Louisiana we got is not just the size of Louisiana today. It goes all the way up to Missouri.
No, Montana.
It's huge.
It's humongous.
We doubled the country overnight.
Yeah.
What's crazy about that too is that so Monroe went with one goal and comes back with 8x, 100x as much or whatever. The same thing happened in reverse at the end of the Mexican-American War. Polk was like, get every fucking ounce of Mexican land you can. Every fucking thing.
Which went all the way up to Montana.
Yeah, but so California, all that stuff, all the way up to, I think we had Oregon, but other stuff up there and everything. But his negotiator, who I do not remember the name of because he did not become president, was like, I'm not going to steal all this shit from Mexicans. I'm going to be reasonable. I'm just going to take the rest of the contiguous, what is now the United States, just a several $1 trillion worth of land. And so at the end of the Mexican-American War, the guy actually had orders to get a fucking, like, all of Mexico, basically. Like, he had orders to be like, just fucking it's ours now. Fuck it. And this guy was like, this is stupid. Let's just take the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need this desert and whatever, jungle. Like, fuck. That's how the borders came to be.
Interesting.
Ironically, this whole deal is brokered by British bankers taking American bonds and shipping gold to Paris. France and England would then resume their war immediately after this.
Got to get paid.
Yeah, got to make sure everything clears first. Then we'll fight again.
I mean, I think, honestly, in a way, England, I don't know this at all for sure, but it makes sense because I don't think England was ever comfortable with Napoleon being on the throne. And so they knew another war was coming. So, like, let's just get into it.
People forget, I'm not comparing him to Hitler by any means, but the way he stormed through the place, that was... People in Europe felt the same time then as they did during the rise of Nazi Germany. They felt the same about Napoleon as they did Hitler. Like, oh, this guy's taking land way too fast.
Napoleon was their, like, Europe's big bad. You know, the world's big bad now is Hitler, right? Everyone's Hitler. Before World War II, it was Napoleon. So, like, the best example I have of that is in Sherlock Holmes, Moriarty is the Napoleon of crime.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that is the boogeyman. Napoleon is the worst. He's Genghis Khan. He's, like, the worst.
Do you know what Napoleon and Hitler also both have in common? They were previously enlisted.
What do you mean?
They were just enlisted.
Jack is just saying in order to create a Napoleon or a Hitler, he has to serve first.
Well, no, I'm saying that
he's saying everyone that's enlisted right now has the possibility of becoming either Napoleon or Hitler.
Yes, officer corps, especially in those periods, there was a certain aristocracy.
Yeah,
there was they came from certain bloodlines. There was certain families that became officers. Those two came from very simple roots, and they had an underdog. They had like I'm gonna fucking take the world mentality because they were all pissed off at shit that happened to them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't feel respected enough.
I think Napoleon was an officer the whole time. I don't think he was ever an NCO.
I'm just going off of Kurt Vonnegut.
But you're right, though. No, he was, like, lowborn.
Yeah.
But his parents saved up and sent him to military academy, I believe, and he became an officer because he was an artillery officer, like, from the jump. Hitler, though, was a corporal. Never got above corporal, which is, like, impossible to do if you're in the military for 4 years in a war, to only get to corporal.
Yeah.
Technically, we remain neutral, but Jefferson and Monroe took a more pro-France stance, as the British would infringe on maritime rights far more often and kidnap way more U.S. sailors, forcing them into the Royal Navy.
I like how you said more. They just did it more.
Yeah.
So both sides were doing it, but one was doing it too much.
The French did it a couple times. Like, all right. Not again.
Enslave my sailors once. Shame on me. Enslave my sailors twice. Hold on, pal. But they only did it twice. England was like 3, 4, 5.
Now, 1807, this is probably Jefferson's biggest mistake under his presidency. He signs the Embargo Act and forbid any trade with foreign nations in an attempt to hurt the British. But he then came to the realization that he was tanking our own economy, and it was rescinded in 1809. He was on his way out.
Fuck that, dude. That's globalist propaganda. That's all I'm hearing. This is globalist propaganda. We don't need to trade with a single other country.
Trade is good.
Yeah, I know.
Madison was way more aggressive on the British and ultimately declared war in 1812. Though both now at war with the British, American and French forces never tried to renew their old alliance.
I was going to say, at that point, that's coming back to an X too many times at that point. Yeah.
Also,
and we never coordinated any military activity together for the War of 1812.
For the best.
Yeah. That's like when you've already fucked some chick over enough times, and you don't even bother having the conversation again. She probably hates me at this point.
Yeah. And also, you need to keep that arm's length in terms of hey, we hate you too, but we're not with him because the British really fucking hated him.
Yeah.
We were probably just pissing them off. he was an existential evil threat.
Yeah.
So to link up with him after they take care of him, they're going to turn around. You don't want to be Italy to Germany's Germany. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Like you don't want that smoke.
Oh yeah, they were part of that too. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Like it's good to just do your own thing.
Yeah.
So the Monroe Doctrine drops in 1823, and France straight up ignores it as they start messing around in Latin America.
In Mexico.
Yeah, they're also still fucking with American ships from time to time. We fast forward to 1831. We call on France to pay their 25 million francs to American ship owners for property seizure during the Napoleonic Wars.
That's rich.
They refused.
Rightfully.
And one Andrew Jackson was livid about this. Told the U.S.
he
Navy
seemed like he was prone to anger very easily.
Yeah.
told the U.S. Navy to gear up and get ready to roll. Congress thankfully blocks Jackson's reactionary call for war. France finally agrees to send money in exchange for an apology from Jackson. And he says, fuck no. All he has to do is apologize to the French, and they'd agree to reparations.
That's too much. It's too much for that man. Are you kidding me?
His pride has basically prevented us from getting a nice little chunk of change.
Yeah.
You know, he comes a little bit more level-headed a year later. Relations are totally broken off. But in December of 1835, Jackson has a bit of a change of heart, doesn't apologize, but offers up kinder words to France to open up back more cordial relations.
Are we still trading with them at least?
Here and there.
Okay.
But it's still tense.
Okay.
Now let's go to the American Civil War. Napoleon III favors the Confederate States of America,
Of course he does.
hoping to weaken a growing power in the U.S., protect his investment in the cotton trade, and have a new ally in the Confederates to strengthen his own second empire in Mexico.
So the French were kind of being hypocrites, too, about their whole enlightenment and all men are free when they're supporting the side that had slaves.
The French Revolution ended with an emperor.
Yeah.
Like, it was a fucking... I mean, like, there were some interesting things shouted during it, but, like, it was dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, through and through. As far as I'm concerned. Like, and it ended with an emperor, and then, like, no revolution that helps people... It's more akin to the Russian Revolution, right? Like it ends, it's supposed to help people, and then it starts a world war, ends with an emperor, and then that emperor gets deposed, and the monarchy's back, and then you've got like 8 more revolutions, and then you get another fucking emperor. They're a mess. I love them. I do love the French. My aunt was French. I took French in high school. Je m'appelle Bert, but
Napoleon III installed Austrian Archduke Maximilian of Habsburg on the Mexican throne in 1863, despite a protest.
Wow, I didn't know the Habsburgs were still clinging on at that point.
Despite a protest and refusal to acknowledge the new government by Washington, D.C., and he supported the Confederates, hoping to allow the French free reign in Mexico.
yeah. No, the Confederates weren't going to bother him. I mean,
Yeah.
like, do whatever you want.
But yeah, Maximilian of Habsburg. Just doing his thing.
The Austrian.
That's like the most inbred of all those families.
Oh, we did an episode on the king.
Charles II
Yep.
of Spain. Holy moly, dude.
That guy was a mess.
He was a
He was a
nightmare.
miracle.
He
that-
was, well, you know, in like the way
that
like
he was like alive.
yeah, he's essentially just that thing from Alien Resurrection where they're trying to clone Sigourney Weaver a bunch of
Oh
times.
yeah.
He's just like, kill me, kill me.
But
Like, no, actually, we're having this really hot Portuguese princess come over, and she's gonna marry you, and you get to have sex, dude. I can't get it up.
They inspected his underwear to see if there was any cum in it. That's an actual thing.
But he couldn't even get it up, right? From what I understand.
So he was allegedly like a premature ejaculator, but there was also rumors of ED.
Yeah,
So
from all the inbreeding.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anything.
he
worked
could
right.
barely speak.
Yeah.
But I think everything was just weird. It was like a broken cuckoo clock, you know? Like he would just be walking along and be, beep, boop, and then, you know,
Yeah.
everything falls apart. Like it's not on time, not when it's supposed to be. Yeah.
So by 1865, American troops crowded the Mexican border. France pulls their resources and troops out of fighting with the Democratic American-backed Mexican rebels, and Maximilian was executed by firing squad.
We actually
Sounds like a fitting end for a Frenchman.
we brought, after the Civil War was over, we brought French diplomats to D.C. to watch the Grand Army parade, the celebratory parade, and we were like, hey, These are all combat veterans. They all just fought a much tougher war than we would have with you. So you can get the fuck out of Mexico.
Yeah.
Or we can send these motherfuckers down there. Like, we have our war machine is humming right now.
On trains.
Yeah, like, your fucking call. And they were like, oh, fuck, all right.
Mm-hmm. After the assassination of Abe Lincoln, which caused an outpour of support from French citizens, and the removal of Napoleon III after the Franco-Prussian War, relations with our two nations actually improved.
Whee!
In the 1870s, the French encouraged and activated a student exchange program with hundreds of U.S. women to practice medicine in Paris, as they were prohibited from doing so in the United States.
Rightfully so. They weren't ready.
Mark Twain described France as a nation with no winter, no summer, no morals. Apart from that, it's a fine country, usually governed by prostitutes.
Sick.
That's something Twain would say.
Yeah. And Twain, I'm sure, was rolling through those prostos, to be honest.
Are you going to cover why they gifted us one of the most iconic structures?
1884, France gifts us one of the most iconic symbols in the United States, the Statue of Liberty.
What was there any reason? Was it just like, was it purely like, hey, we like you guys, here's this, or was there some sort of, what was the?
It was a bicentennial gift, I think.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And I think it's just after all these years of,
or not a centennial gift, I should say. Yeah.
All these years of just a little bit of tension, just kind of bringing everybody together.
Give them a big ass statue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have their own. If you've seen National Treasure 2, you would know that.
Yeah.
They have their own Statue of Liberty.
1906, Germany and France had a few dust-ups over Morocco. Teddy Roosevelt actually sides with the French here.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Really showing our loyalty.
You know, I think, you know how, like, you're saying the fucking French were like, go Confederacy. That is a big, new, powerful country over there, and I don't want them, like, let's divide that power up. Like, fuck that. I kind of think a lot of people were that way, because, so Germany unified after the Franco-Prussian War in the 1870s or whatever. I think a lot of people were like that with Germany, too. Like, oh, boy, that giant just woke up.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, man, they're really efficient.
What's funny is people don't realize it was like the best artistic country too.
Yeah.
For 50 years.
The musicians that were coming out of there, yeah. It wasn't all military. They were a complete culture.
They were probably the most complete culture in Europe until the end of World War I. And we just ripped it to pieces.
Speaking of Germany, World War I. The initial wave of U.S. troops on the Western Front during World War I brought no heavy equipment to load the ships up with as many boys in blue as they could, and they relied on French tanks, planes, and artillery. U.S. gave Allied forces the edge they needed, and Woodrow Wilson was received as a hero during the arrival in Paris in 1919.
First president to ever go to Europe, I believe.
That sounds right.
It is. And actually, what I read recently the other day that I didn't realize is that Harry
also a huge fucking racist.
Oh, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Huge piece of shit.
Wait, what was your statement again?
Sorry.
Woodrow Wilson was the first U.S. president to go to Europe as president.
Okay. I was going to be like, Jefferson didn't?
Not as president.
Okay.
Like in office.
Yeah.
They had all been to Europe, but in office he was the first sitting president to travel to Europe.
Okay.
And actually Harry Truman was the first sitting president to go to Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, I know,
That's
right?
Crazy.
That is fucking wild.
I mean, they had their own issues with stability up until, they're
great now.
Yeah. I mean, compared to what things were 100 years ago.
It's the Wild West for sure.
Yeah, it was
but what was I going to say? Oh, when we first got over there, when the troops for World War I first got over there, Jack, tell me how you would feel about this as a veteran, a war veteran specifically.
Sorry.
We got over there, and the French and British, but I think more so the French, were like, okay, here's what is going to happen. It's German. Sorry, I can't do it. They're like, here's what's going to happen. Thank you for the troops. They will be under our command, under French general's command. We're just going to take them and use them wherever we want. And Pershing and the Americans were like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You can have our blacks.
That's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would you like our blacks? They're like, we'll take anybody.
Yeah.
They actually loved the black troops. The
Harlem Hellfighters.
Yeah.
That's a story within itself. What those guys did over there.
Oh yeah, they were awesome. They're badasses. But yeah, for the white troops anyway, we were like, no, we'll be under our own American command.
Yeah, the AFE.
Yeah.
That's why in World War II, Eisenhower was very staunch on how things were going to go down and what America's role was going to be in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he was in World War I.
Yeah.
The honeymoon after World War I didn't last long. We clashed over the Treaty of Versailles. France wanted money and resources to help it recover from the absolute destruction visited upon it during the war, but the U.S. thought the treaty was just a breeding ground for another conflict down the line.
And we were right.
Very right. You know, this is a funny...
I don't blame... Sorry.
No, go for it.
I don't blame the French for being pissed off at the Germans, but strategically, in the history of the world, we know you cannot punish another people like that after the fact. It's only going to empower them.
100 times. It's going to make it way worse. Yeah, you can't make them bitter. You got to kind of just coddle them, to be honest. Like, you kill the... I mean, not necessarily in World War I, because I don't think they were really...
What are you guys talking about? This is a great place to end, because surely nothing of importance came after that disagreement.
That was it, yeah.
But I mean, it was the end of war. It was the war to end all wars. Everyone lived happily and peacefully ever after. And we didn't have to repay the favor from the beginning of the episode and save France's ass a couple decades later.
Again.
I went to a museum while I was out there. Somebody explained the second time around where the failure was. It's not that the French army was weak and inefficient or inept. But the Germans was just so freaking good. And then the way that they went into France, they just found one little hole.
Yeah.
And they once they punched through it, there's nothing you could do.
Yeah, I mean, you know that. Like once, I mean, in any battle, like if the flank breaks or something like that, if someone gets behind, it doesn't matter.
They had the whole country at that point.
Yeah, because the French equipment and everything, like they had really good tanks.
Yeah.
They had a lot of, I don't know how their Air Force was necessarily. The German Air Force was almost certainly better. But their armor and their army and stuff like that was like truly world-class shit. Like, but it's just, I mean, even the best fighter can get caught. You know what I mean? Like, you can catch anybody.
And they did their job when they went to the underground. Oh, boy, did they do their job around there.
Yeah. I mean, de Gaulle's kind of a dick, but other than that.
In the 1920s, D.C. made tensions rise as they believed France needed to repay some of their war loans. Meanwhile, we also backed the Germans with the Dawes Plan, where American banks would finance loans for the Germans to repay the reparations to France, who would then in turn repay the Americans.
Sure.
This genius multi-level marketing scheme obviously collapsed during the Great Depression.
Man. Yeah, I think when I was a kid, like I remember seeing this on the History Channel, like we were still owed money for World War I.
Yeah, the Germans paid off their debts for World War I. They did. They did it like in the 90s.
That's really funny.
I think they're chipping away at World War II, and they'll have that paid off within our lifetime.
We'll get to it.
Really fucking funny.
All of our great writers and jazz musicians of the 20s spent their time in France and had their work influenced by the lives there.
I mean,
Faulkner, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Hemingway. Many black artists like Josephine Baker experienced somewhat equality during their time overseas, as France had no discrimination laws in place.
I mean, just watch Midnight in Paris. You can get a history lesson just off a couple movies, really. You're good to go.
Interracial marriage was not common, but it was acceptable there at that time.
Anti-American sentiment began to rise in the late 20s, with French traditionalists fearing the power of Hollywood and influence of New York advertising agencies who would threaten tradition, customs, and their own culture.
It's valid.
They weren't wrong.
Yes. Americans do not understand. Our most powerful thing is not our military. It's how we sell our culture.
Yeah. Oh, it's even more than the economy. They're tied hand in hand to an extent.
Yeah.
But it is like we are the global culture, more or less.
Because of Hollywood and the ad monster we have.
Yeah. It's crazy. There are no Chinese movies making $1 billion overseas. There are no English or French movies doing. I mean, we're kind of taught, like, the English are basically part of the Hollywood system at this point.
Yeah.
But like anyone else, there's no Russian movie doing it. There's no movie. There's no films. There's no television shows. There's no it's and music even more so, probably rap and fucking pop. Like, good lord.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, rock and roll. And again, you could say like, oh well, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, or what, but that's I know
they don't exist without a bunch of black guys in the South in the 1940s.
Right, and well, and even still,
that Elvis had to steal from to make rock and roll.
Their global popularity doesn't exist if they don't blow up in America.
Yeah,
like it all has to come out of America. Fuck 'em.
1928, the two nations co-sponsored the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which outlawed war as an instrument of national policy and called for countries to settle international disputes peacefully. This obviously worked, as their biggest concern, Germany, signed the treaty.
Phew! What year?
28.
Well,
guess who wasn't a fan of that?
yeah.
When the Nazis started to buck, Roosevelt and the War Department secretly tried to sell our most modern airplanes and equipment to France, knowing the Nazis had a much superior air force, against the wishes of our own military. Factories here still needed time to ramp up production, and in total, only about 200 planes were delivered before the French surrendered in 1940.
Obviously, only delivered 200 planes in 7 years.
Yeah, we get involved because FDR's trying to do this secretly.
Yeah. And so starting in 33. Okay, so starting basically when Hitler lived to like 32, 33. So 6, 7. The war starts in 39. France is done in 40. Yeah,
pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a way to get out of the depression. Just start building shit for another country. Sell them your fucking military hardware.
We get involved. Patton and the boys in blue do their thing on the east side of France. And Eisenhower and the Allied command agree it should be General Leclerc and the French 2nd Armored Division who first stepped foot and liberated Paris in August of 1944. After Patton continues to push the Nazis out of the country altogether. So the French are the first people who technically liberate Paris, but
I saw over there that you know that whole thing that people in our populate ignorantly yell quite a bit. It's like they'd be speaking German if it wasn't for us, and they'll use that in any possible way to win.
Surrender monkeys.
Yeah, the French are so aware of that.
Really?
Yeah, I had probably a man in his 60s, 70s. We were literally having a conversation with the Google Translate thing on my phone. He flat out said, like, when he found out I was American, his complete demeanor changed. He was so kind and polite to me, and he said we'd be speaking German if it wasn't for you guys. I'm sure, like, he's a generational Norman. I'm sure his parents and older siblings have vivid memories of what it was like to live occupied for 4 or 5 years.
Fucking nightmare.
Yeah, but they still feel that over there, that liberation. I've never seen so many American flags on the side of houses like I did while I was in France. Yeah. The French, Canadian, and British flags, they rock that shit in all their houses.
That's fucking sick. I actually read something, just to your point, during the 80th D-Day celebrations or whatever, some French guy who was I think he was like a kid or teenager during it. He was not fighting age. He was talking about how when his town was liberated, it was like St. Mary-Glise or something like that, how American bombers like dropped bombs on it, you know what I mean? Because there were Germans stationed there.
Yeah.
And a couple French civilians were killed, I think including like a kid or something like that. And they're like, do you harbor any, resentment for that or whatever? And he's like, no, it's what needed to be done. It's unfortunate, but like it was like we had to be freed.
Right. And one person, the Germans took France relatively unopposed, right?
Yeah.
So they got to go in there and have it. They just, they're in charge. Where us liberating the French people, the Germans were going to put up a fight. There was going to be collateral damage.
Oh yeah, they really did get most of the country like pretty easy peasy, because once they broke through that line,
they were in.
Yeah, they rolled. There wasn't a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, there was violence, but
people don't realize we didn't even get the whole of France by the time the war ended. There were still pockets of France that were still German controlled. I think it took like almost 2 months to get the entirety of just Normandy itself. That's not counting other parts of France.
Oh yeah, was that Operation Cobra, I think, or something like that?
Yeah, Cherbourg, where I was staying, which is about 20, 30 miles from St. Mary-Glise and the big Omaha and all those beaches. That it took them like over a month to secure that port.
All the hedgerow fighting and shit.
Yeah,
fucking nightmare. Yeah, fuck that.
When you stand on those beaches, when you I went to St. Mary Glee as well. When you're standing there and you're at that church in the center of town, like it all becomes so real to you. Like,
were they hanging the paratrooper off of it?
All I wanted to do when I got on that flight back was watch Band of Brothers because it like made it so much more real once you're there seeing it.
Like that's like a huge that and Gettysburg are like my two bucket lists.
That's a good one, man. I didn't know you were rocking with the Gettysburg.
Come on, bro. I grew up watching Gettysburg on TNT like every fucking weekend.
Oh yeah, Jeff Daniels, fixed bayonets. Oh, when he says it,
nothing gets me harder.
Yeah.
Marshall Plan.
Putting that on during sex, but
we
do it.
Yeah,
I fixed my bayonet.
Marshall Plan was enacted in 1948, giving over $13 billion in economic recovery for Western Europe. We also forgave the French of close to $3 billion in loans from the First World War in 1946, and expected no payment for close to $5 billion for the French under the Marshall Plan. So just kind of here's $5 billion.
I think there's a reason for that though, and it was because they knew we were going to make so much goddamn money selling them shit. Because they had no capacity to create anything at that point.
We also become formal allies again under the North Atlantic Treaty, which set up the NATO military alliance.
Mm-hmm.
In the 50s, we run into some issues over the French handling of colonies in Africa and Southeast Asia.
Specifically, one.
We did not support
that one.
Their fight against communism in Vietnam, but Eisenhower was like, like we're not going to get involved right now, but here's some stuff. We'll sell you stuff.
Yeah. Like I would prefer there not be communism there. I actually watched a really interesting TikTok the other day from some vet that was like, we didn't lose Vietnam. That was like his whole point. I could talk about that later, but it was an interesting thing. He was like, we had a peace treaty signed. They did not take South Vietnam, and we left. And then they reinvaded a year later.
Yeah.
Like, we tried to make a peace deal. They walked off the table. So we dropped more ordnance on North Vietnam than we did in, like, all of World War II over the course of, like, 12 days. Brought them back to the peace table. Separated the countries. Basically tried to set up a Korea 2.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got that done. And we're like, all right, we're fucking leaving.
Yeah.
Fucking chill. And then North Vietnam, like, a year later was like, we good? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, went and took South Vietnam. And then they took Cambodia. And
yeah. The president down there that we put in charge probably was more morally loose than Ho Chi Minh was. The guy we put in charge was not a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
The French, though, they really showed their side of the friendship, though, because when we started ramping up in Vietnam, they told us, don't, man.
You can't win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fucking nightmare over there.
So Egypt tries to nationalize the Suez Canal in 1956, and the British, French, and Israel end up attacking. Eisenhower forces them to withdraw, and the Brits align with our Middle East policy. But France gets a little bit more distant, and they say we're an unreliable ally.
Moody.
I mean, we right out of the gate, we went back and forth and not paying each other back. And
right. It's the type of thing where it's like when things get serious, we're totally there for each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When things get serious, it's wonderful. But when things are kind of like lower stakes, we're just petty little bitches to each other. Like we're just dickholes the whole time. Like any little thing, we're just like, man, fuck you. And they're like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then like they call and like, hey man, someone's breaking into my fucking house. Oh god. And you're in the car immediately, getting over there, and you're like,
it's happened a couple times in my lifetime. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna be talking. We're gonna be talking about freedom fries, right? We talking about freedom fries?
Oh,
okay.
we gotta talk about freedom fries.
Yeah. That was the first time in my life, because I was in the military when all that was happening. But that was the first time in my life where I realized America's animosity towards the French could become so vehement.
Oh my god. It was like the dumbest thing.
It was the dumbest reason to get angry.
If you want to ever, and you're not wrong for being angry or annoyed at like sort of like woke policing of things or whatever.
Can we just get to it?
But
let me naturally get to it.
All right.
I'm sorry, man.
We're just excited.
Yeah. I'm ruining the groove here, and I'm hungover.
That is the groove here.
France also sought help from the United States on nukes during the 50s, But Eisenhower's like, no. Shot it down immediately.
What, they wanted some, and he was like, fuck off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted help from us, and we're like, we're not going to try to... He was trying to de-escalate the nuclear thing anyway. It's like, we're not going to give another power nukes.
Yeah. Which they figured it out eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to teach a man to fish, you know?
Can't just give you fish, bro.
This French era had a bit of a renewed tension with the U.S., not really supporting one another. When we do get involved in Vietnam, like you said earlier, they pretty much warn us like, hey, you can't win that.
Yeah.
But they leave us alone. From the 70s to the 90s, France uses the European Union as a way to counterbalance the power of America and work towards building up the euro to challenge the U.S. dollar in world trade.
Almost works.
Good strategy.
Yeah, kind of works for a minute.
Reagan tries to prevent France and the rest of Europe from getting their natural gas from Russia. They ignore him, and the Siberia-Europe pipeline was completed.
Probably should have listened to him. Probably not the best.
We kind of make up during the Gulf War, when all French troops were ordered to be under American command by the Assemblée Nationale.
That's really funny that we got to Europe in World War I. They're like, you're under our command. And we were like, no. Well,
for the
Gulf
Gulf War.
Guys, but
yeah.
not the rest of them. And then they get to Gulf War, and they're like, here, take them. Take them all.
9/11 happens. French Secret Service work with our own intelligence agencies, set up a base in Paris to counter terror operations. However, France disapproves of our invasion of Iraq in 2003. Americans get pissed and briefly boycott any and all French products. Like you said,
so fucking dumb.
You recall the Freedom Fries era of America.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that vividly?
Yo, we used to prank call the restaurant I worked at and other restaurants, and we were like, we would just like order, like a burger and fries, and they're like, that burger and French fries, and we'd be like, call them Freedom Fries.
Yeah.
God damn it,
dude. That's why when I see people get angry about all the Bud Light stuff, I don't get into that because I'm like, I never want to be a Freedom Fries guy. Like, I never want to become angry about something that's dumb and not worth being angry about.
And the best one of all, my favorite, wasn't even Freedom Fries, even though that is by far like the funniest, like gayest thing.
Yeah.
But like the funniest one to me is that French's mustard had to come out and be like, French is a last name.
Oh God.
We are not from France. Please continue buying our mustard.
Dude, it got so dumb. And the thing is, that's when America got back on they're weak, their military sucks kind of train, which is not true. The French military bangs, dude.
Really?
They to this day they are into some shit.
Did you ever serve alongside any? Meet any?
Not like in a combat situation.
Yeah.
But I've interacted with them. Yeah. But they get down in shit. So the French they're at it, man.
I feel like I've seen that they have like pretty sweet like sci-fi ass looking rifles.
Yeah.
Like the French and the Belgians just have these like fucking spaceship rifle. Like they just look crazy.
Yeah, I think the British do too. I remember seeing the British rifles and it looked like something out of a movie.
That's hilarious. You're just holding your what even M? Do you have an M16 at that point?
It was an M16.
M16
that I had,
still.
Yeah.
You're just like.
Yeah, I know.
What is it now? An M4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of left it there in 2003 because, our 20-year rule.
Yeah. I mean, we are kind of like...
Not much has happened since.
Nah.
They've been great allies in combating terror throughout the world, that's for sure.
Yeah, because
they've been up to a lot.
They fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, people forget the... I guess if you want to classify this, there's probably way worse ones that have been in, like, Africa or some crazy country in the Middle East or something like that, but like the biggest sort of like Western mass shooting.
Charlie Hebdo.
Yep. No, it wasn't that one. It was the one that killed 200 people in Paris.
When the heck was that?
That was a different mass shooting.
When the heck was that?
I don't know, around the same time. It was within a couple of years of that.
What the heck?
They killed. It was like 3 terrorists with AKs killed 200 people in Paris, just like going around town.
I'm too American to keep track of every shooting.
And then there was a couple other ones too in France that were gnarly, like the trucks. Remember, they would just ram trucks into huge crowds.
Yeah.
What country was the American Save the Day train?
France.
That was France?
Yeah. Oh, Alex Scarlettos. did a scene with him in a movie.
Yeah, they did a movie.
Yeah.
They played themselves.
Well, they made a movie about him, yeah.
They played themselves.
Yeah. Which is a very American thing to do.
It is.
What do you guys learn today?
I mean, that I like France. Petty little bitch that it is, I like it.
They've never horribly wronged us. We've never. Yeah. We've never horribly wronged them. The way you open it up was the best possible way to describe that relationship.
Being the cousin that helped us out during childhood and is now a little jealous of our own success.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, too, because that cousin was extremely successful in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to the point where it was like...
But had like a drug problem.
Yeah, had like a drug problem. But even still, the success was so great that they were, to an extent, were like, no one's going to top that.
A couple setbacks. Had to go to rehab a few times.
They'll brag to their friends that they're related to you if it suits them.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But yeah, I do believe we owe the French an apology.
In general.
Just for helping us create our nation.
Yeah. That was the biggest... that's forever friendship right there.
It's an unpayable
that one thing.
debt.
Yeah.
Who's today's Hitler?
Hitler?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think we mentioned by name, yeah.
Man, I really...
Is it Arthur Lee?
Arthur Lee is a dickhole. I really...
Napoleon.
Which one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
both of them are assholes, to be honest. I hate the French Revolution, too, or at least the Reign of Terror part of it. It's asinine as fuck. But I'll just go with Hitler. Because Hitler, everything that we shit on France for is Hitler's fault.
Also, shouts to Monroe.
Monroe's dope.
He did so much.
Yeah.
We don't give him enough credit.
You guys got to do a Monroe show now.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's you. You're already halfway in.
All right. Well, Jack, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. You know me,
pleasure.
as soon as we yell cut, I'm going to be like, was I good? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm hungover.
You brought it.
All right.
You brought it, baby.
You brought it. I love your hair right now.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
It's flowing.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah. I started growing it for a role that I was in, and then the whole project got canceled. But I'm going to see how far I can take this.
I think you should just hang out in a park.
Oh yeah, a guy that looks like me, they'd love that.
Yeah, just to see how just
watch Rob's kids.
It's not illegal.
Yeah,
that's why I keep telling everybody, like, what are you doing here? You have kids here? I'm like, it's not illegal for you to be here.
It's a public place. Yeah.
Just a man on a bench.
Shout out to Slice Street Pizza too, by the way, because they gave us pizza for today.
Oh yeah,
and I'm very.
It's gonna be my nourishment for the way home.
They're in Dripping Springs, baby. Check them out if you're in the area. They gave us some
Thanks
za.
for the pies.
Yeah, some real good za.
Anyway, that's all I got today. Hopefully you have a new appreciation of our French brethren.
I always loved them. My aunt was French.
At the very least, don't talk shit about it.
And at least call them French fries. Don't be a freedom fry guy.
Yeah.
They invented French fries, too. I mean, it's a kind of. I mean, it's steak free.
You know what they have at French McDonald's?
What?
They have, like, tater tots there. Yeah.
I'm into that.
It's amazing. I went to 3 French McDonald's.
I want to go to. I want to get fucking drunk at a French McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can.
That's a good bit by you. I remember when you went to Hawaii, Honolulu.
Yeah.
You were just like, oh, yeah, look at all this awesome cuisine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You
every
showed
chain restaurant.
You showed an intersection in France that I was like, is this in Ohio?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was just a Burger King, I think a McDonald's. It was just nothing but American fast food chains.
Yeah.
And it just looked like the shittiest highway off-ramp in Ohio.
Yeah.
Like it.
Which, by the way, the French their influence, American influence, is pretty low compared to the rest of Europe. They do a pretty good job keeping their Frenchness. Yeah.
That's funny.
And like you heard off the top, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/softcorehistory. You get 2 additional episodes every week. There's an entire back catalog of evergreen content, of ad-free, just, episodes like this, game shows, bunch of stuff.
All kinds of fun stuff.
We got another episode coming up this week about Willie Mays.
Was he a cheater? Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
We're going to piss all over his grave, I
Is
suppose.
he rotting in hell right now?
Yeah, you couldn't even give it 48 hours, huh, guys?
But for his crimes against baseball.
Find out. Patreon.com/softcorehistory. Jack, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
For Jack Mandaville, Rob Fox, I'm Dan Regester, and you just got soft served.